Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Lori Smith, one child abuse survivor to another restoration. Sorry about that. Just a couple seconds late there. Glad to be here. Glad to be doing the show at 6:30 here in the morning, Thursday morning, September 15th, and just having a coffee, waking up. And glad to be here, and hope you're having a good morning too. Thanks for joining me on my shows. I really appreciate it. You know, I do a lot of shows and do a lot of things, and it's hard to keep up with all my work, but I appreciate everybody who's taking the time to listen to my shows, and hopefully they're helping somebody out there. I know they're helping me, and hopefully the information is somewhat helpful for someone else too. We'll get right into this. It's just really a morning reflection, looking at, what I can do to help myself and do, throughout my week, to help myself for my healing journey. And it sort of keeps me accountable, so I'll keep doing the work, so that's why I'm doing this, and hopefully the information is helping somebody else as well. So you just want to make sure that you're like, if you're a survivor of abuse, that you're not going to be triggered. So do a safety checklist. Make sure you're safe enough to be listening to something like this. And if you're not sure how to do that, grab it from ASCA's Moore Center program, Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, Survivor to Thriver Manual. Those are free, and you can grab them on their website. You can download it or just read it on the site. And there's the first chapter is called Safety First, and it's like almost, I don't know if it's over 60 pages, but it's a big, a lot of reading to do. But I read it a long, long time ago. It's very helpful to know that information. You want to keep yourself safe so that you're not triggered and, go backward in your healing journey or just have a miserable day. Nobody wants that. So make sure you're safe enough to listen. If not, don't listen to the show. Just turn it off, right? Adult Survivors of Sexual Abuse. This is an acronym from HAVOCA. And really, this could be for anybody surviving any type of abuse, really. She said that she's just using the letters for, all the different letters from adult survivors of sexual abuse to do this acronym. And she's written a bunch of info here. This is Cheryl from havoca.org. I think this is really interesting to look at, so that's why we're looking at it. The V in Survivor. V, value what's most important in life, you. You only live once. Cherish the life God has given you, or your higher power has given you. Nurture yourself. Love yourself unconditionally. That's awesome. Value what's most important in life, you. Well, we have to value ourselves, and we have to, value what, this life that we've been given, And I mean, I never, as a survivor of abuse, I couldn't see the value in life. I couldn't see the value in my life. I couldn't see the value in me until I got much older, much older. And so I'm learning how to value myself and how to take care of myself, So these things are really important. Nurture yourself, love yourself unconditionally. And we do need to be kind and compassionate and nurture ourselves, right? Especially surviving abuse, So many times people who are survivors of abuse, were never shown how to do that, or just like myself, just end up hating themselves, hate their bodies, and hate what was done to me, hate the way that my abusers made me feel about my body, about myself. And so I've never really taken care of myself, my own body or anything. So I'm working on trying to be nurturing to myself, nurturing and kind, and learning to love myself. So it's very important. I think that's awesome what she says there. So we'll move on to the next part. This is looking at inner child healing work, and this is also from HAVOCA. That's HAVOCA. That's Help for Adult Victims of Child Abuse. HAVOCA.org. It's under the Survivor tab, Inner Child, loving the wounded child. That's what we're looking at, this section here. Yesterday's was really quite interesting. This morning, we'll just pick up where we left off. It is by owning our wounds that we can start taking the power away from the wounded part of us. When we suppress the feelings, feel ashamed about our reactions, do not own that part of our being, then we give it power. It is the feelings that we are hiding from that dictate our behavior, that fuel obsession and compulsion. So it says, well, that's kind of interesting to look at. I mean, even John Bradshaw was talking a little bit about that, like owning the woundedness, owning the abuse, the part of ourselves that was wounded, right? Because I guess there's a necessity to do that. There's several different places I've actually seen that. I actually don't like that because I don't really feel like owning that, because That should have never happened. You know, but I do actually understand, I guess, partly what they're talking about. As far as suppressing feelings, I mean, possibly, I mean, over the years, I'm sure I've suppressed feelings. I mean, obviously, I was suppressing a lot of the abuse, especially the child sexual abuse. But the other stuff, it really wasn't. Most of the abuse I never really repressed, right? And so, just mainly the child sexual abuse. So, that part of it, once I actually began my healing journey and started working through things, I realized that, I kind of had to do them all separate. So I worked on my feelings and reactions towards the physical abuse that was done to me, the verbal abuse, the psychological abuse, emotional abuse, all that stuff. And then the last part of it that I did was on One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, just a couple of years back. You can go and check those shows out. The last part I did was really focusing on the child sexual abuse. And I mean, I went through, I don't know, maybe even, I don't know if it was a year worth of material or something, but it was a lot of looking at the issues, And it was difficult, absolutely was, to allow myself to get in touch with what really, what the damage really was from the CSA, and how I was going to be able to reach in and help myself, you know what I mean, to get in touch with those feelings that I had really pushed down and really had suppressed. So I guess I guess that's what they're saying is right here, It's the feelings that we are hiding from that dictate our behavior, that fuel obsession and compulsion. Then they go on to say codependence is a disease of extremes, and those of us who were horrified and deeply wounded by a perpetrator in childhood and were never going to be like that parent adapted a more passive defense system to avoid confrontation and hurting others. And the more passive type of codependent defense system leads to a dominant pattern of being the victim. So it says those of us who were, codependence is a disease of extremes. Well, that's for sure. Those of us who were horrified and deeply wounded by a perpetrator in childhood and were never going to be like that parent adapted a more passive defense system. So, yeah, that can happen, passivity. There's all kinds of, there's passive aggressive type behavior, passive coercive. There's all kinds of passive manipulative type behavior stuff going on. Because, yeah, we don't want to be, as an abuse survivor, I don't want to be the one who's hurting people. But in the meantime, everybody has the potential to hurt somebody. And unless we're watching our behaviors, even though we may not feel like, I'm not out, like on purpose hurting people, or trying to hurt people. And so it's a passive type of hurting people that I think most people are doing. And, it doesn't matter what situation it is, whether it's a working situation or a working relationship, friendship, some type of family relationship. These things are really difficult especially for survivors of abuse, right? Because we've had to learn how to, we've in order to try to survive, have picked up all these horrible ways of dealing with things. So it is really tough. I know my sister's really like that. She's very, very passive. I'm more aggressive than my sister. My sister's 5 years older than me and was never very aggressive in the situation, but she could really hurt you passively. She really knew how to be very passive and very hurtful. And then what she does is say, "Well, I'm not hurting anybody. I'm fine. You know what I mean?" And turns it around on you. So she's a bit of a narcissist almost. A passive narcissist, I guess. Never take any responsibility for anything that she does. She's the same as my mother. So when she does hurt somebody, she never, ever takes responsibility for it, because this way she doesn't have to feel that she's responsible for it. Oh, it's not her fault. She hasn't done anything wrong, right? As for me, I recognize when I do things wrong. I actually do recognize it even after I've done it, or slightly within seconds sometimes, or minutes. And I realize, oh boy, that was wrong. And I have to apologize, because I know I don't like to be hurt, and I don't like to be wounded, and I think that it's important to apologize when we've done something that's possibly hurt somebody or made somebody feel bad. We need to apologize, own up to it. So, a lot of times this more passive type stuff is really difficult to deal with people, because it's really just a form of self-denial. It's kind of like, oh, I'm perfect. I don't do anything wrong. I don't hurt people. Look at me. I'm so passive. I'm so calm and passive. It's like, Yeah, but you still have the potential to really hurt people. Doesn't matter whether you're passive or aggressive. It's both hurtful. So, there's all kinds of defense systems that we've developed as survivors of abuse, possibly, that really, you know, are very, very damaging to our adult lives. That's why I started looking into this stuff, back when I started looking into it, which was really around 2009, because I thought, man, I gotta change this. I need to change myself. I need to work on what's what's causing me to behave the way that I do. And obviously, I knew that it was stemming from the abuse, but I wanted to get a real look at what these behaviors were and how I could learn to recognize them and then correct them. So, because I don't want to go around hurting people and I don't want to hurt myself. I want to have a good life, and I wasn't given that information. I was given a lot of toxic, faulty, really dysfunctional information. And so, I thought, man, I need to get help. I really do. So I'm glad that I started reaching out. But my sister's not on a healing journey. She has no intentions of getting help, and she's in denial, right? She's actually kind of dissociative. My friend thinks without diagnosis that, she's never been a diagnosis done on her, that she might be multiple. And so she's got all kinds of problems, but she goes through life, just doing life passively, and everybody who meets her thinks she's real, real sweet. But actually, she's not very sweet, and she will hurt you. You know what I mean? It's just she looks real sweet, and it comes across very passive aggression. So whereas me, I'm more blunt, it's in your face kind of. I'm a bull in a china shop, making a mess of things, and then I have to apologize. I'm like, oh, sorry. I am really sorry about that. I'm like a bull in a china shop. It's evident, it's visible, you can see it. You know what I mean? It's like when I come through, it's kind of like a train wreck. You know what I mean? It's there, the mess is there, the damage is there. I have to apologize. My sister's very passive and sneaky about the way she hurts people, and then walks away smiling because she's like, nobody saw that. It was passive. It was a passive aggression type thing. I'm hurtful, but nobody knows, right? And it's like, no, we all recognize it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, these behaviors are really horrible. And, unless we get help, it just continues on and on and on, right? And so that's why I'm really glad that I got on my healing journey, so I can learn what this stuff is and try to correct it. And it's very important. So we'll pick up the rest of that tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow, Friday. Positive reinforcement. Okay, what are we doing right in our daily walk? Looking at the positives instead of just looking at all the negatives, saying, oh boy, I didn't get this done and I didn't do that, and I should have done this, being really hard on ourselves. That's just too easy. We need to be a little kind of, kind to ourselves and look at what we've done that we're doing right as well. And so I think that's important. I'm doing good. Not doing too bad. I've had a lot of flashbacks lately, a little bit more than usual. I'd say this week anyway, which I haven't really talked about on this show. But I've had some sort of flashback type stuff going on. Some feelings have come up because of it, or it might be the flashbacks coming because of the feelings that I'm having. So I'm going to have to do some work probably this weekend when I have some time. Sit down, maybe journal, take a look at what's going on, and to see why. It might be the stress involved in my life right now. There's so many things going on that me and my husband have to move. We need a vehicle in order to do it. It's really going to be difficult. It's going to be costly to do this, and as well as I need a vehicle, and we're going to have to try to find a place that's as handicap accessible, because my husband spends a little bit of time in his wheelchair, that certain things that he has to do when he goes out for long distance stuff like doctor's appointments or whatnot, that we have to have a wheelchair accessibility, because he can't do long distance walking. He can really only walk to the bathroom and back pretty much, or the kitchen. That's it. So it's going to be a little difficult because we can't own a home. We're not in that type of financial, ability, right? We just kind of live paycheck to paycheck. And so it's not, it's very stressful, these type of things, right? Which then makes me feel like maybe I'm not competent enough to actually get this to make this happen. And I sit here and I'm like, well, I'm 51 and I've made it this far, so I can do it, right? Part of myself says, oh yeah, I can do it. And the other part says, oh man, I don't even think I have the strength or the energy for this, 51 years old, I'm exhausted, just my whole entire life I've been just sort of struggling. And but you know what though? I'm just gonna have to just do it. I don't really have a choice. It's just going to have to happen. And I decided, every day I have to go through a little mantra, like a little meditation to say, that it's all going to work out. Just relax, be calm. Things like this can be very stressful, especially for survivors of abuse. I don't have any support from family, see, that's the problem. And most of my family's dead, but the few remaining people that are alive really, you know, even if I hadn't gone public with our story and hadn't done any of this stuff, to try to heal from the abuse that I suffered as a child, they still wouldn't have helped me out. So it's not like it's a it's a problem that I've gone public with my stuff, and they wouldn't have helped me out before, so they're certainly not going to help me out now. So I can't expect my family to step in. So it's like I basically kind of have to do this on my own, and well, we're just gonna, it'll all work out. I'm used to struggling. I'm used to getting things done in a struggling manner. So, but one thing that we're really blessed with is that we were smart and we saved our money because we knew that the move was probably coming up, and something just told us, we're going to have to move eventually here anyway. Let's put the money away, and that we were very smart to do that because it's very expensive, and so I was like, thankfully we did that. So we're not broke. But the thing is it's I've been in this suite for 10 years. It's going to be a lot to go through and box things up and clean things up. It's like living in a house for 10 years, Just collects so much stuff, and it's just like, it's a lot of work. So that's what kind of maybe what's triggered this whole thing is this move coming up that I have to buy. I have to get a vehicle, which I would like to get a vehicle anyway, so that's fine. I drove for years. I just let my car go because I live I live downtown Calgary, right? Very, very, everything is nearby. I don't really need a car downtown. It's really just a waste. It just sits in the parking lot. So it's time to get a vehicle. And so these types of things, they can challenge us. And then, as a survivor of horrific abuse, being told that I didn't deserve to be alive and I'd never make it and I was just a worthless, this and that and all these horrible things my whole life by these two abusive parents of mine and some of my siblings, I have to wake up in the morning and say, no, I'm not any of those things. I'm actually very strong and capable of making this happen. And if I have to, I'm going to reach out and get help because I'm not going to struggle in this, you know what I mean? Not that much, right? So I just need to remember that I'm not that abused child in the corner anymore who cannot defend myself. I'm not that little child who's laying on the floor anymore, just warding off the blows, right? That's not me, right? That was me as a child. But now I have the ability to stand up and be strong and take these challenges on, and I am perfectly capable of doing it. And it's like I have to go through, I guess these are positive, almost positive affirmations, to say that I can do it, right? And so this is probably what's triggered all this stuff. So I'll go through and I'll probably do some journaling this weekend. So yeah, it's just good to be on my healing journey. I'm glad to keep continuing on it, right? A positive affirmation we could say for ourselves today is I can meet new opportunities without fear. So there you go. That relates totally to what we're talking about. I can meet new opportunities without fear. That's right. And because, some change is sometimes scary, And for me, I don't mind change because I'm used to change. So change doesn't bother me. It's not the change that bothers me. It's just overwhelming stuff. It's going to be difficult. That we have all these strikes against us as far as trying to find a place that's handicapped accessible. That's very difficult. And we don't want to go into a handicapped apartment building, but that may be what we're forced to do. And this is what's probably distressing me. It's not so much the challenge of getting things done, because I can do that. It's the issue that, I'm kind of concerned that because of his health and the situation with the wheelchairs and walker and having to have, certain things in the bathroom, like hand bars and things like that for safety, that we're going to end up having to move into a handicapped building, which I don't want to do. I wanted to get like a top of a house somewhere or something with a little yard, where Cecil could go sit outside. He loves to sit outside in the sunshine and get some fresh air. And, I just thought that'd be really nice. So we'll have to, I'm just going to have to put it up to my higher power and just put it in his hands, because this is all going to have to be like a miracle. And I've seen him do so many, I've seen my higher power, that's my God, do so many miracles in my life that it's not even funny. And I recognize them. when they happen because I came from hell. I was born into hell, so I recognize good things when I see it. And because goodness really I didn't have a whole lot of goodness growing up. There wasn't very much good about anything growing up, so I recognize good stuff. And there's been some very serious miracles take place just I was over my lifetime, but especially in my adult life that I've seen. People would say, I don't believe in miracles and all that stuff. Well, that's fine. Doesn't matter. I've just seen some really awesome stuff happen, and I know it's from my higher power, my creator. And so, I can meet new opportunities without fear. I can do this, and I know that I can. Self-care, what are we doing both physically and spiritually, emotionally to care for ourselves? What can we work on to help ourselves, right? This is very important, I mostly the spiritual stuff, the emotional stuff I'm doing pretty good in. Spiritually, I'm well, completely well. Emotionally, I'm still working on a few things. But physically, that's the issue. I need to really take care of my body, which I'm working on now, so I'm glad I've actually started doing that, and I'll be doing some rowing today, even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes rowing, just something, or walking in place, just because I don't have a lot of time. I'm going to have actually zero time once I start working here at 9 o'clock. My day goes from 9 to 8:30 at night. I work a split shift, so I have a couple hours in the afternoon to try to get things done, and that's generally either helping Cecil or trying to get my own stuff done or taking a nap. It's like it's busy, just go all the time. So, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of time, but I'm going to squeeze 10 minutes in there, 10 minutes of rowing, just because I really like it. It's enjoyable exercise for me, and it's good. It's really a good exercise for my body, so I'm glad I'm going to be doing that. And then later this weekend, I think I'm going to look into the yoga again, the beginning yoga, because I really want to start that. And so it's good to take a look at these things to see what we need to do and what we can do to help ourselves out, right? Personal Bill of Rights. This is Charles H. Whitfield. He has a Healing the Child Within Personal Bill of Rights, and we are on, which one are we on? 31. He's got 38 of these, so we're almost done with these. These are really cool. 31 says, I have a right to be in a non-abusive environment. Isn't that the truth? I have a right to be in a non-abusive environment. Yes, I do. And you do too. It's actually our right to be in a non-abusive environment. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what kind of abuse. Emotional abuse, psychological abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, spiritual abuse. I mean, we're talking like we all have the right to be in a non-abusive environment. Unfortunately, the world doesn't go along with that. The world thinks it's okay to hurt people and just do these horrible things to people. And that everybody should just take their abuse, It's like they think they have the right to abuse people. So it's like, that's unfortunate, but it's true. We have the right to be in a non-abusive environment. That's why, as an adult, I have to recognize my own behaviors when I hurt people. If I do something hurtful to somebody, which I do, sadly enough, I'm not perfect, right? I wish I was. I really do. There's no perfect person. Everybody has, like I said earlier, everybody's got the potential to hurt somebody, right? It's anybody who comes into our lives. If we don't handle ourselves properly and try to think before we speak, think before we act, that's something I rarely do. I'm like a bull in a china shop. I just run through, make a big mess, trash things, break things, and then I'm like, sorry about that. So this is how I operate, right? So it's like, it's not, I don't know, I have to take some of the responsibility on. I don't take it all on because a lot of that's from the abuse that I suffered. But, and it might just be from getting hit in the head too many times. I mean, I really don't know. I've had so many concussions, I don't know. So, I've got fractured skull from beatings, and it's just, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if some of that's not from that. But I recognize, when I've hurt somebody, and I'm like, I have to make it right. So that's the thing. See, if people were doing that, there'd be a whole lot less trauma and a lot less problems on the planet. Because it's like, okay, people do hurt people. We know that. Even people that think that they don't hurt people, they hurt people. Right? I know people that think they don't hurt people. I'm just perfect. There's nothing wrong with me. Everybody hurts me. It's like, no, sugar pie. Sorry. That's just not true. We all hurt people. Everybody does. But it's recognizing it and saying, wow, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? I really did not mean to do that. Covertly or overtly, right? Whether it was in your face, totally visible or whether it was passive and behind the scenes. I'm sorry I did that, right? But so many people, they will not take accountability for what they do, and they won't be responsible for their actions, and they won't apologize and try to make it right, and at least say, I'm sorry, right? I know that I hurt you. I'm sorry, that kind of thing. No, nobody wants to do that because they're all perfect, right? Well, I'm sorry. I got news for you. You're not perfect. Nobody is. I'm not. And there isn't anybody on this planet who doesn't go around hurting people at some point. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous to assume that people that it's just that nobody wants to take responsibility for their behavior. That's what always made me mad is my parents would never take responsibility but for their behavior, and they abused us. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. My brother, he was totally mentally ill and screwed right up psychologically. And he's responsible for the child sexual abuse. He didn't take responsibility. Nobody takes responsibility, right? So I didn't want to be like that. I thought, no, I need to take responsibility for my behavior. I'm not going to be like my abusers, and my abusive family, and just not be responsible for my behavior. That's ridiculous. So, I always apologize when I realize that I've hurt somebody. And if and there's only so much you can do to make it right. But at least if you apologize, and you're sincere about it, they know that you're sincere, right? And so many times people just, they just hurt people and they don't care. Oh, they're perfect, right? The rest of the world is messed up. Well, I got news. That's just false, And so I like what he has to say there. And the Havoka has a site, Bill of Rights as well on their site, Havoka Survivors Bill of Rights. And specific to the domain of psychotherapy, you have the right to know reliably the times of sessions and of your therapist's availability, including, if you so desire, a commitment to work together for a set term. So you have the right, I have the right, if I am working with a therapist, that I can know reliably the times of sessions and of my therapist's availability, if I had one, right? Including, if you so desire, a commitment to work together for a set term. You do have rights. I have rights, and so it's important. This is the domain of therapists, counselors, psychotherapy, that type of thing. If you have a therapist, make sure that you know that you do have rights. We do have rights, right? So that's important. And I want to look at, we have a couple minutes left here. We'll look at identifying boundaries. These are really interesting. This is from Michael C. Irving. He's a PhD. He's a sculptor, coach, counselor. He's a survivor of abuse himself. And he has a website called irvingstudios.com or Child Abuse Survivor Monument. So if you just type in that in your browser, you'll find it. And he's got a survivor tab, self-care tab, and he's got identifying boundaries. This is really good. To have good boundaries, you have to identify them and think about what they are. Physical distance, emotions, time, space, and thoughts. So this is boundary work. I've done a lot of boundary work, and I still have more to do, I'm sure. But I've done a lot of looking at the boundary work. But I think what he has to say here is very interesting. So to have good boundaries, you have to identify them and think about what they are. Physical distance, right? Physical distance refers to the space that you have around yourself and others. For example, being too close or too far away. That's this physical, our personal space around us, right? What is this space? Where am I comfortable with people entering that space? My personal comfort space, right? So interesting. Emotions, having difficulty with emotional boundaries means not being able to distinguish between your feelings and others' feelings, or merging with someone's emotional energy. This is something that I guess I could do, or after picking up other people's feelings, because I am an empathetic person. Not only sympathetic, but empathetic. Like I try to put myself in their shoes, right, and understand what they're feeling. But in doing that, I can kind of take on some of that. But I've also got boundaries set up so that, that sort of thing doesn't become a problem. Excuse me, but for some people, that's a real problem. So emotional boundaries are very, very important, and you need to make sure that you do have them, and that you know where they're at, what type of boundaries you have set up, and how you're going to deal with stuff, right? It's very, very important. So we'll have to pick the rest of that up tomorrow morning. So thanks, everybody. I appreciate you being here, like I said, taking the time to be here. I wish you a most wonderful day. We'll be back on tomorrow morning, same time, same place. And if you're having a hard time, like I always say on every show, you reach out and get help. You do not suffer on your own. And, allow yourself to just kind of go downhill struggling. That's what I did, and I'm really... I made a promise to myself that I would never allow myself to get there again, ever. And so, I'll call a crisis line. I'll call somebody. I don't care. I'll call 911 if I have to, man. I am going to make it. And that's what I wish for all of you. If you're a survivor of abuse, you make sure you get help. You deserve it. You did not deserve to be abused. No one does. You make sure you get some help. And the rest, everybody, I just hope you have a wonderful day. Take good care of yourselves. Be kind to yourself. Be good to yourself. Do something good for yourself today. And, be kind to yourself. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.